All right. Welcome in, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. Tonight, we are so excited to be here with Khadijah Queen to celebrate Between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea, a veteran's memoir, which is a coming of age memoir about family, survival, and one servicewoman's search for autonomy. Tonight, Khadijah will be in conversation with W.J. Lofton, a Chicago born poet and Alabama raised multimodal artist. He is the author of A Garden for Black Boys, Between the Stages of Soil and Stardust, and his newest collection, Boy Maybe. A recipient of the Ava DuVernay's LEAP grant and an artist in residence at 100 West, Lofton has earned fellowships from Cave Canem and Emory University. His work has been featured or forthcoming in Time, Wildness, Obsidian, Scalawag, Academy of American Poets, Poem a Day, American Poets Magazine, Prose to the People, No Justice, No Peace, From the Civil Rights Movement to Black Lives Matter, and film festivals nationwide. Lofton's constant concern is liberation and its lived manifestations, the personal, political, and collective. He resides in Atlanta, Georgia, where he co curates Rebellion, a writing salon, alongside Dominique Anthony Williams. And our author of the hour is Khadijah Queen. Khadijah holds a PhD in English and Literary Arts from the University of Denver. She is the author of 7 books of poetry and prose. Her work appears and has been praised in O Magazine, The New Yorker, Rain Taxi, and elsewhere. Queen is a Cave Canem alum, a 2022 United States Artists Disability Futures Fellow, a 2023 Civitella Ranieri Foundation Fellow, and holds the 2025 Kai Twombly Award in Poetry from the Foundation for Contemporary Arts, and is a William Carlos Williams Award from the Poetry Society of America. She divides her time between the US, the UK, and France. A couple of housekeeping things before we get started. There will be time for questions at the end, so keep your questions in mind. And for folks joining us online, please put your questions in the chat and I will read them out. And lastly, buying your book from Charis directly supports us in putting on free events like this. So after the event, feel free to grab a copy from the register, and Khadijah will be signing books afterwards. Over to you, WJ.
It says, okay, here we go. So I'm really excited to be in conversation with you. I also wore my LA sweater
I
for
love it
you.
so much.
um, let's just get into it. So this week was Veterans Day,
Yes.
and so I want you to speak about what it means to be a veteran and a poet, and how those identities intersect.
I have actually never thought about that question. And
Mhm.
I have only thought about it. Well, that's not true either. Because when I went to school, when I was in the service, I took this modern poetry class and I read Wilfred Owen's
Mhm.
poetry. And I was like, oh, there are people who have written about this experience before in poems. And I was like, oh, you could do that. So I tried, but mine were like really weird.
Mhm.
I was writing like sonar poems and things like that because my sensibility is more on the experimental side. And every time I tried to write about my experience in poetry, it ended up being prose. So I felt like maybe I wasn't going to
Mhm.
be having a relationship with my veteranness in poetry. Um, that experience can silence you,
Mhm.
and it can make you feel like you're an anomaly among regular people. And so maybe that is the intersection because poets can also feel like that and it unsilences you. So maybe that's the relationship.
Can you speak to how prose feels more of a home for your veteran experience versus the form of poetry and how it takes up space?
I think I just had to tell the story straight out. And the way that I write poetry is a little bit more like designed, I guess you could say. And when I was writing it, it was very raw. So it seemed like I should just tell it how it is instead of in a narrative poem. And I had more to say than a poem could hold for me.
So I'm thinking through, and I want to situate us in LA,
Yeah.
where the book begins. I'm thinking through the situation and the environments that you made legible um, to join the military, how precarious conditions were. Can you speak to that? And would you like to read any of the?
Sure. Do you have a page
Yeah, so
request? Yeah, you know how even now gentrification is pushing people out, and we just, you know, didn't have money.
mm-hmm,
So we didn't have money. Nobody had a degree. My dad went to jail,
mm-hmm,
and it was like, and then my sister, was addicted to drugs, was having difficulty with her kids, and so we kind of just had to go help her. At least my mom did, but I didn't want to. I didn't want to leave. I had a job. We had our little apartment. I was like, I'll get a roommate. But, my mom just kind of was like, we need you. We need the car. The car was in my name.
mm-hmm.
And we had to go to Michigan. And I was horrified and depressed about it.
Can you read the last paragraph on page 22 and
Mhm.
then the last sentence or the last two sentences on page 45?
I didn't understand her addiction, and I grieved the big sister I'd lost. Her white coworkers at the accounting firm where she'd worked as a secretary introduced Linda to cocaine at an office party, and that began the end of the sister I knew. Linda used to sweep through the house in her A-line skirts and silk tops, 6 feet tall in high heels, perfumed and dazzling. She gave us $1 for every A on our report cards, a bonus $2 bill or coin if we kept good attendance. Who was this monster who neglected her kids and destroyed the lives of everyone close to her? I wished I knew how to help those kids and my mom in a way that really changed things instead of just feeling like I was playing whack a mole with never ending crises. I wished we could figure out a way to love and care for them that would last. And you said 45, which one?
And the last two sentences in 40 on 45.
Travel and school, two things that gave me hope for a better life. One I could love and be proud of, instead of sadly resigned to, were now within reach. My head spun with possibility.
Hmm. Can you speak to? I like those two passages because one is describing the need to or the desire to help your mother and your sister, and then the other is speaking to this desire you have to be your own person and explore
Right.
the world. Yeah, can you speak to those two things?
Yeah, in a lot of ways, that's kind of the struggle of my life. Like, being a daughter is a big responsibility, I think,
Mm,
and especially if you've had any kind of semblance of success and nobody else in the family has, it's going to fall on you, and that is your responsibility. Um, but at the same time, if I had not had that foresight to like look after myself and what I wanted, which was an education
mhm,
and to get out of Detroit, I would not have been able to give the help that I have in the years
mhm,
since, or to help myself.
mhm. I was feeling your frustration when um, you and your sister were sharing the car, and just the duress of sharing the vehicle, and you going to classes, and then the job schedule,
Mm-hmm.
and how it felt like, oh, where's the hope? And
Where's the hope?
choosing between the education and then paying your bill.
That part, and also like not feeling supported.
Mm-hmm,
Um, and that particular sister, I learned like there's my older sister Zoe in the book
mm-hmm,
had actually offered to take her to work, but she
mm-hmm,
said no. She just wanted to share the car. And so I found out that my sister is my biggest hater. And so it's like you're fighting family, you're fighting circumstances, you're fighting your own desire to do the things that you're bringing up. Um, where does your responsibility lie? And what are the costs of ignoring your responsibility to
mm-hmm.
yourself?
And can you speak to the motivation of choosing the responsibility to yourself?
I didn't have a choice anymore. I was disappearing.
Mm,
I was disappearing. I was sinking. I was like, I felt like if I didn't do what I needed to do for myself, I wasn't gonna make it. And had I stayed, I wouldn't be able to help nobody because I would have needed the help. So I don't think I had a choice.
And can you speak to the guilt that's involved?
That guilt doesn't go away, but I just decided, I had to decide that what I was aiming for was going to help them more than me staying and being a lump of sadness and depression who didn't want to live there anymore, which was leading to me not wanting to live. And so I had to go. I had to go. I had to go. And the guilt part, I think, was managed by the understanding that it would be greater later, as my mom would say. I knew that it would. I can't explain how I knew it, but I knew that the guilt couldn't. I couldn't let the guilt stop me.
Speaking about the sadness and the depression, the book is balanced, which I really appreciated because there are times where I can feel just how much grief. There's actually a chapter called Griefscape.
Yeah.
And you can you speak to the police violence against your brother and how that shaped your mother and how she appeared in the family and also her losing children.
Well, there's a lot of fear associated with that. I think she was very overbearing, partly because my brother passed away. She liked to keep us close, and then also my sister, being on drugs like that, she felt like she had didn't keep her close enough, and so it led to her being very overbearing and instilling a kind of fear in us of being on our own. But I couldn't let it, like, I just couldn't hold it anymore. It was too big. And then her sadness, her anger, her outrage contributed to her being an alcoholic. So that cost us, a mother who was sober. So police violence for me is a very personal topic. And I don't talk about it very often because it does, you know, I know what it cost me and I know what it costs everybody. And it seems like no matter what we say, they keep doing it. So then that leads me to a spiral that I don't want to go down. Um, but I understand and appreciate everybody who can speak out more, like louder than I can. I think for my mother, like all that stuff that was going on in 2020, to see her, she's struggling with dementia at the time too. Like every time something else happened, it was like my brother died again. And so bearing witness to her grief was heavy. And then my son was 20 in 2020. And Elijah McClain happened, and we were living in Colorado at the time. So it's very, very close. It's never far away, really. It's, we're in bodies that are under attack.
How did you, or did you, as you are writing this and revisiting some of these very traumatic events, how did you guard your heart?
I just was by myself a lot, and I would write in bursts, and I would have like a lot of snacks and then not talk to nobody. And I had a therapist, I had a wonderful therapist. I still have a therapist, to try to talk through some of the difficulty. Went through a lot of, over the 20 years writing this book, went through a lot of changes. The biggest surprise to me was how angry I was. And I hadn't let myself feel the anger. So that drove a lot of like the middle part of the writing process, was like really letting myself feel the outrage of me trying to be in this organization that said you can, oh, everybody is equal and you have the same opportunity, but that being a bunch of bullshit. So I had to deal with that anger. Um, so it was a slow process. I gave myself time and support.
You you cover a lot of space in the book, and I really enjoyed the glossary. It felt like an instruction, and I really enjoyed how you ended the glossary with the word watch.
Mm.
It felt like an instruction for the reader for the tool that they would need to navigate all of this that was happening. Can you speak to how the glossary is a tool?
Yeah, my my agent is actually the one who wanted to have the glossary, and then my editor had me expand it a little bit because when you're in the service, as you know, you just remember all that stuff and you don't realize that other people don't know what the heck you're talking about.
Mhm.
So I resisted some things. Like there was one term, reveille,
Mhm.
that I didn't put in the glossary because that's a word you could look up. But so I wanted it to be like tight, and I wanted it to feel like not like reading a dictionary, but like being a kind of introduction to the world of the book, the language of the book.
I found it interesting how you have lists, like outside of the glossary, there's this list of triggers.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was very interesting that you made a list of triggers because I'm like, in that process where you triggered while writing that
Oh, I was
list.
triggered this whole process. Yes, I'm triggered in the bookstore now. It's yeah, that was a really tough time in my life, and I had to like decide if I was going to think of myself as a traumatized person or not
Mm.
when I was thinking about how I was going to talk about this book. And like, who is this person who wrote it? Who is this person in it? Who am I now? And those are all like kind of different people, and learning to respect that difference was a cool process, I think. um and that it's okay to like feel your feelings. I'm doing emotional regulation work. Imagine, because they train it out of you. They train you out of feeling what you feel in the moment so that you can do what you're told, or do what you're trained to do. And it's not like my family taught me that either. So it wasn't very foreign when they were doing that training. But now, as 50-year-old adult, going through a lot of life changes, it's super important to learn how to emotionally regulate. And I really appreciate that process. I feel like I don't even know what your question was now. What was?
I think you answered
Okay,
it.
good.
And can you speak to like the complication of once being in service, once being a part of this institution, that a lot of people, you speak very clearly about it wasn't patriotism. It
No.
was like, I'm trying to travel, I'm trying to have a better experience and a better life. And then you arrive in this institution that kind of perpetuates violence.
Mm.
And now on the other side, that you're a writer, thinker, poet, theorist. How do you wade through all of that and make sense of it?
Yeah, that was the question my agent asked. She's like, "Why did you even go there? Like, how did you think of that?" And I really didn't think that deeply about it. I just wanted to go to school. Like, it was the urgency of it. I'm in this cold ass place I hate, dealing with my family's BS and no end in sight. And I'm like, oh, I can get $40,000 for school for real. I can go places. I don't have to be here. I could get training in California, my beloved home. Sign me up. So I didn't think about those implications. I'd been working two jobs
Mhm.
and trying to go to school and couldn't. And I was,
And the
yeah.
harassment that you were facing at your jobs and the
I
racism.
mean, the harassment was like my whole life,
Mhm.
my whole life. I've I'm lucky to be able to be indoors more, so I don't have to deal with it now, maybe because I'm old. But it's so freeing to not have that kind of grabby attention on you all the time. You can regulate your emotions. You can like kind of just relax into yourself. I don't think that I had that capacity as young me.
And so now that we're in a different space, you are a fully actualized woman who's thinking through the next stages of her life, experiencing different things in your body and your mind. Um, can you speak to like what you are doing with that liberty, that word that we
Mm.
see reoccur throughout the book, and these times of freedom, and whether how has your service in the military impacted how you think about time, your free time, your freedom, autonomy?
I I have thought about freedom over the years in terms of aesthetic as a writer. I've tried to be free within myself as a creator of writing. I feel like all my books are different in style, and I love doing that. Um, I am a single mom. My son is autistic. I don't have a lot of free time. I was a caregiver for my mother and one of my nieces during the pandemic, and now my older sister is with me. So I still have a lot of family responsibility, and not so much free time as um, perhaps my olderness might um, convey. And I also have a lot of health stuff going on. So I go to the doctor every week, and I teach. I teach twice a week. I have a pile of blurbs to write. I have letters of recommendation to write. But I have tried to be of service. I ran a reading series for writers for a long time. I'm working on a book of interviews with a bunch of Black women writers in the tradition of the Claudia Tate from 1983 that I'm very excited about. And I'm low key behind on. Sorry, Maya. Um, so I've been working on that. Um, I have tried over the years to make space for other writers who may not have had the same space if I had not opened a door, and to think about my relationship to the field and what I would like to contribute to it. And I won't talk about some other stuff that I've done, but sometimes you have to do things in secret and low key. So I do some of those things too.
Is there a certain urgency that you work with due to your connection to the military, due to you understanding that, I think sometimes we say the oppressor or our enemy in a very nebulous, abstract way, but because you actually know the exact might of the U.S. military, from
Mm-hmm.
what place do you write from and what urgency pushes you forward?
In terms of, can you rephrase that?
So I'm thinking through, because we know, because I'm thinking through my service through the military,
Mm-hmm.
and because I know the extent of violence in which they will
Yeah.
go. Does that inform the urgency in which you write?
Not today, but when I was in, that's when the war started. And so I was like, I can't with this. I can't be part of this. And that was a big reason why I got out. And I couldn't reconcile how I felt about how they felt about the people they were harming, and my own, having grown up as a Muslim. And just my experience there, I didn't feel like I was valued as a human being. And hi, come on in. Hi. I don't. I try to stay out of the military stuff, honestly, because it's triggering, and because I feel like other people know better than me how to talk about it. I thought about writing something about Pete Hegseth. I started writing a Substack about his little weird memoir thing, but I don't even want to talk about those people. I don't like them. I don't want to talk about them. It doesn't have anything to do with me personally anymore. I feel like I need to pick a thing and make the difference I can in that area instead of scattering my energy like I have in the past and depleting myself. So I think his appointment and his weird little changes, talking about Secretary of War and his little ridiculous pep talks that were insults, are performative and have nothing to do with those military members who might be serving with pride, and make us look bad on the world stage and have nothing to do with military readiness. And, a lot of my family members served in the military, Air Force, and Army. So I hesitate, to criticize the people behind it, that are the workers, but it's the people who are the ideologues that I find great issue with. And I don't think I need to be involved because I'll act a fool. And I need to go do what I gotta do. I'll swear right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you do a really great job of laying bare the structures
Mm-hmm.
of racism, misogyny. Can you speak to when you're on the boat, um,
Mm-hmm.
and you're experiencing, I think it's like 30 women to
300 men.
300 men,
Yeah.
and how the misogyny just shows up at every angle.
Yeah, there's no escape. There's no escaping it. And I was reading something else. I think it was Just Memoir. She was talking about the South and Americans saying, oh, the South is this, that, and the other, and racism and blah, blah, blah. And she was like, one cannot escape out of this whole country. Like she said
They
it
say
better
it's
than
far and
that.
wide.
It's built in.
Mhm.
It's the structure itself. It's not just in the South. It's just a different brand in the South, but it's everywhere. And the same thing in the military. It's a microcosm of the entire structure that we live within. It's just like concentrated in a way that you not only can't escape, but that you have to be obedient to, or it like ruins your entire life. So, I mean, and of course that's true elsewhere, but in the military, I think like it's just concentrated. Um, it's very personal and it's in your career. And I think until I got on the boat, I didn't understand how my having grown up as a Muslim under that patriarchal system and having seen what happened to my brother, or not seen, but because I was so little, like seeing the effects of what happened to my brother and the situation with poverty, not being able to escape that. There's just like no way out of any of it. It's built to box you in. And if you can get out of it, if you can escape it even a little bit, that's a freaking miracle. So I think we were talking about this before the mics came on, that we have to understand and give ourselves more compassion and grace if we have become ourselves outside of this box that is built to suffocate us.
Um, can you? So we talk about LA, and you love LA. It's
I do love LA.
there's a palpable
Yeah.
feeling of love that runs deep throughout the book. And you're always wanting to make it back there.
Yes.
Can you speak to like what LA means to you?
Hmm. So since I was just there, I can probably speak a little bit more. It's home.
Mm.
It's the place where I know all the streets. I know what they look like. I know how people are. I feel accepted. I feel like people are like me there. We have similar cultural references. I was when I was just there, I went to my favorite restaurant, which is called Simply Wholesome, off of Overhill and Slauson. I was there when they were building it, and they have a fish sandwich that I eat with alfalfa sprouts, tomato, and a smoothie. And my son gets the Jamaican patties. And everybody there is black and different in every way. Like there's so many different kinds of blackness. They got the final call there. They got like a health food store there. It's a low key, chill, healthy, health oriented, really black place. And I just feel at home there. And it's beautiful and the weather is great. What is not to like? I mean, we went through a lot in the 80s with drive-by shootings and stuff, and that's in there, gang violence and stuff like that. But again, I'm gonna put more of that on the external structures that are now exposed to have contributed to that flood, than I would on the actual people that I knew when I was there.
Your mother shows up as a complicated figure,
Yes.
complex figure in the book.
Yes.
And there is this one moment where there is a drive-by happening, a shooting happening. And I remember you asking, well, what happens if we get shot in the bed? And she says, well, I know what to do.
Yeah.
Can you speak to the dynamism of your mother, the complication and the complexity of who she
Yeah.
is? Yeah.
Yeah, my mom was the second oldest of 12 and was basically the one who took care of everybody, because my grandmother was working with all those kids, and my grandfather was also an alcoholic and not any help. And my oldest aunt was also not any help and was my mom's biggest hater. You can see it back.
Siblinghood is.
Yes. So my mother was very hardworking, very caring in some ways, um, very devoted to community and family. And, my parents met in the Nation of Islam. They knew each other for like 5 minutes before they were arranged into marriage. So it was a complete mismatch. And my dad is like this debonair, flashy type. And my mom is was beautiful, and but she was very down to earth from Michigan. So I don't know. And my mom, I think she had owned her own home when they met. She owned her own car. She had her stuff together. And my dad just like blew that up. And so that, and then my brother died. And so that changed her from this dynamic, vibrant leader in her community to someone who was trying to stay alive because people were threatening her life, after they killed my brother. And then we had to move, and it was just like tragedy after tragedy. And so she became somewhat, I don't know, just angry. She was so angry. And she took care of us, but it was so hard on her. And we could feel it and we could see it.
Can you talk more about the anger? Because we encounter your rage
Yes.
in several incidents throughout the book and how did it
Mm-hmm.
manifest?
Well, she did do the whole whooping thing. She definitely did that. But she also defended us. If anything happened at school, she would go off on them, and nobody would play with my mother. So I definitely inherited that to a degree. Um, but it just takes me a little longer to get mad. Just I like try not to get mad because once that switch is flipped, then it's hard to turn it off. But my mother, she didn't have space to express her anger, I think. And she was a creative person who had to give up dreams because of patriarchal BS, once again. And the times that she was living in were very oppressive. So she didn't have an outlet for her outsized talent as a singer. She didn't have an outlet for her anger either, so she drank it. Except for her children, maybe. Sometimes we would meet the anger.
The book, we see habits and routines occur throughout the book, as far as addiction, as far as the routine of the military, the regiment. How does that manifest throughout the book? How do you seek to express that from going from home to the military?
Yeah, I think I notice how things work and I try to like follow the rules of things. And so when the rules are not then followed in return, that's I think I get angry because I'm trying to follow the rules, but y'all tripping and not doing it, you're lying. And so there's that sort of thing that I learned as part of having ADHD, which is a deep sense of like justice and moral outrage when things don't go the way people say they're supposed to go. And I think I also probably struggle with routines. So both of those. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does.
Okay.
There's this really complicated. I don't want to tell the book, but I have so many questions.
Yeah.
There's this moment where there's a potential incidents of sexual violence happening, and you are confronted by what to do.
Yes.
What does that moment mean to you to have placed in the book and to also sit with it so many years later?
I felt that was a really important thing to put in there because so many things that we see, we don't talk about. And I struggle with how to portray it. I wanted to make sure I didn't like violate that person's, experience if they ever encountered the book. But like, it was a pivotal moment for me to see that the person who was harmed would just get further harmed if they said something and nothing would be done about the perpetrator. And this being the 90s, like this after, Anita Hill and all that, and seeing how my dad responded to me having been assaulted, it's just like there's there was a deep outrage there for me. So I didn't feel guilt because I couldn't like I was the one trying to say something and do something, but it was just like outrage, and I refuse to call it powerlessness because there is power in the telling of it. And maybe I handled it kind of messy in the moment.
Well, I think it goes
Yeah.
back to, speaking to like the structure around all these men, and you're like, hey, and they like, shut up.
Yeah.
It is speaking to like this direct violence of
Right.
like, when you try to intervene, we will stop you.
Right. Right. The whole system is built to stop you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you don't belong here if you can't take it.
Um, can we talk about how humor shapes the book?
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm smiling right now. I know you want to talk about like traumatic stuff, but I think it's just like you have to laugh. Otherwise, you're not gonna make it. You have to laugh. You have to make fun of ridiculous things. You have to make fun of what's absurd, and all of these BS things are absurd. Um, so you just have to laugh. I don't think I could have written it without the humor. Then it would just be like depressing, and nobody wants that. Yeah.
um, Thinking about like the impossibility of certain situations or just the complications of different incidents that's happening in the book. I'm thinking about when you're going to join, when you're leaving home, and your mother is like, "You don't have to go." Can you read the third paragraph on page 51?
Sure. 3.
Like, you can wait.
Oh, right. Right. My recruiter is waiting for me to get into the car. And so my mom says, "You can wait 5 minutes before you take away my goddamn daughter." Then in my ear, she whispered, smelling a little of Virginia Slims, "You ain't got to go if you don't want to. Say the word and I'll send that motherfucker packing."
I found it so interesting. I found it very funny for one because there's something to me that knew that she probably would have made
Mm-hmm.
something happen, and then thinking about you actually can't though.
I
Like,
mean,
you have signed a
yeah.
thing, and the military is such a relentless force that. But it made me have this courage that I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, she probably would have snuck you away.
Well, later in the book, right, she
Yeah,
writes that letter
yeah,
to help me get out
yeah,
of boot camp.
yeah.
Yeah.
So she just shows up in such a dynamic way of confronting these systems.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really appreciate you writing that book because I think about a lot when I have gone on deployments,
Mm-hmm.
this feeling of, oh, I can't say no.
Right. Yeah, but my mom said, "You better say no."
Yeah, yeah.
Her courage gave me courage.
Mm-hmm.
Her courage lifted me up, and her anger too. Anger is powerful. We can't be afraid of our anger, and we can't keep swallowing it and make you sick. So we've got to have the emotional regulation and vocabulary to express how we feel about things, and despite our training otherwise. Our anger, they say, is supposed to be directed toward killing, but I think our anger can be directed toward healing and toward opening up space for the right kinds of things instead of the wrong kinds of things. And you could even save your kids, as in one of the scenes
Yeah.
towards the end with my mom, um, going after this guy who had basically harmed my older sister and her kids. So yeah.
What do you hope readers get from this book?
Oh, that's a great question. I think with all of my books, I'm very interested in self empowerment and self determination. I hope that they can find, as you've been saying, a place for their own recognition of their own courage and their own um, sense of power, and that they are part of not a system that is insurmountable, but a system that is transparent, and that we have power of invention. If they dream this thing up, we could dream up something else, right? And the power that they have often is power that we agree to give up to them. And so, what happens if we decide against that?
And you speak about, you mentioned different women's stories in the book. Why was
Oh, I
that?
had to fight for that.
Why
I
was
had to
that
fight
important?
hard. Because I don't want to be by myself.
Mm.
Like, and I didn't want to just be me and my mama, because then it'll seem like it's just like an anomaly of a story. But really, women and people who've been femme presenting have been in the mix from day one. We just, it's like I'm trying to write something else called "All the Service Members Are White, All the Veterans Are Male, but Some of Us Are Brave." I'm trying to write something like that. Um, But it's important to see the continuity of that kind of disobedience and resistance and erasure and courage. I was very, very, very adamant. And so my editor was like, well, you're just going to have to weave that in and stop sounding didactic, because it was a little didactic. But that's why it was important.
Do you believe or do you hope for your veteran experience to be a part of your literary legacy?
Oh man, I have not thought about that. I don't know. I think that's more up to other people than me. What do you think? Literary legacy? I don't know. I don't know. I haven't thought that big yet, even though I've been writing for a long time.
I'm thinking about how Yusuf Komayaka writes about the Vietnam
I
War
see.
and how, in my mind, I can't separate that
Right.
from him. Um, but I think it's also that he made that a point,
Right.
that it informs such a core part of his poetry.
I don't think it has informed me in the same way. I think that I'm interested in multiplicity,
Yeah.
and I'm interested in changing people's perception of what veteran service looks like. Sometimes it looks like people who just wanted to go to school and weren't thinking too deep about it.
Me.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
Us
just
on the stage. Yeah.
right, because we've had other goals that this system had made impossible. And so here was one way that presented itself. And so we went down this adventure, and now we're like talking about it. And there are plenty of people in the service who just like wanted to go to school or needed a job or had to take care of their family. It wasn't this whole like, I'm going to be a killer of men and all that. Most people were not like that. That's the narrative we're taught. And that's not what reality is. That's not even what reality is when we're training.
Yeah.
I hate stereotypes. I think that's what I hope people get from it. Like, please delete the stereotype of what a person in service does is you just at work.
I'm just at work.
You're just at work. And I shouldn't dismiss it like that if people are at war, and that's a different story. But that was my experience. It was not easy to believe that I had a right to tell it from that perspective, that it was just work. Um, and me trying to be at work and having people harass me every day. Um, and for that to be in contrast to the stereotype. So I had to undo my own stereotypes that I had of the service, of honorability. Um, yeah.
What does it mean to be patriotic or a citizen on the fringes of, being a poet and a veteran? What does it feel like your obligation and responsibility is?
I've been traveling a lot this year. I've been to 5 or 6 different countries. Um, and I think going to these countries as a learner, as a curious person, has been important. Trying to understand other cultures instead of imposing Americanness elsewhere. I think we can think about how we move in our own country like that and get to know people who have come here from elsewhere, especially given the orchestrations behind the scenes that America has done. And I would offer CIA versus the military, but it's just me. um, I think we've got to create a different baseline for understanding what human beings are capable of, whatever their status, veteran or not, and a different view of who gets to be in service and who gets to have the privileges associated with what we believe of citizenship. Can we not recognize everybody's humanity and behave accordingly? Can we not associate immigration and citizenship with these separate categories and instead understand that we are human beings? We need to eat, we need to take care of our kids, we need a house, we need to go to work. Like, well, that's another story. Let me not talk about the work part, but we just need to take care of each other. And all these artificial divisions, I think, are boring to me. They're boring and they're outdated and not productive.
So there's a part of the book where you are injured,
Yes.
and
Yes.
I couldn't help but think even how the injuries were systemic.
Yes.
They were a byproduct of this oppressive system. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I that was a big revelation to me as I was writing. I was like, they did that on purpose. Like they hurt us on purpose and then blamed us for it. And that made me think differently, like later, about how things work. Like they overwork you and they injure you and blame you for being poor and injured and don't give you health care.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, the military being a microcosm of larger society to blame people for their own injuries or their own deaths, as we see with police violence. So, yeah, it was important to me to get the systemic part in there and lean into it because once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it.
I'm also thinking through as, service people who we rarely have time by ourselves,
Oh, yeah.
and also as a person with siblings. What does siblinghood and what does community mean to you? And how has that shaped you as a person?
You know, it was such a big part of my life growing up. I was so close to my sister, who I now know is my hater. We were like this. We were only 1 year apart. It was like as soon as I decided not to let her control everything, everything broke. And so I think in the beginning it was like this sense of duty. As my baby sister, I had to protect her. As my elder sister, I look up to her. I need to, play my part in taking care of my family, siblings, and otherwise, and support them when they need me. But then when I needed the help, that wasn't reciprocated. So I had to recalibrate my relationship to that and kind of go back to who am I? What do I want to do? Who am I actually responsible for? Um, can I stop abandoning myself? Can I make can I turn that love and devotion toward myself? Am I worthy of that? So that was a big question in my late 40s.
Yeah. Can you speak to, so speaking about devotion and who are you, can you speak to just how rigorous the regimen is of being in the service, of like every part of your time is controlled, like you
Yeah.
don't have choice?
No choice, no privacy. You just kind of have to do it. Like you can't think. Like thinking is actually not encouraged. Asking questions is not encouraged. So you just like push yourself, you push your body, and you diminish your mind in some ways, unless you're learning. And that was what I was really trying to do. I was really trying to learn. I was One of the struggles in the book is me trying to study for this exam, and these dudes like trying to distract me from that. So I really wanted to pursue exercises of the mind and not just the body and not just like following directions because that's it's a very numbing experience. I think to be surrounded by people all the time and people that you don't necessarily like and then have to be quiet about it. Yeah, that was a big struggle.
Yeah. And you show up as a really good friend in the book.
Oh, that's kind. You know,
Can you speak about friendship and what does it mean to be a comrade?
that question. I'm a very loyal friend. I'm a Leo rising, moon, and
I'm a
Venus.
Leo rising.
Hey, so we have big hearts. We have big hearts. People think that we're egotistical, but it's not really. It's just a lot of love, I think, and we appreciate when people are loyal to us and look out for us, and we try to reciprocate. I think. So friendship means to me like you could call somebody and you that you haven't seen in 3 years and be like, I need something. Like, girl, I got you.
Yeah.
It's an infinite feeling to me to have a good friend.
Can we talk about the traveling book you're working on?
Uh, I kind of
What's the
don't want
what's
to
the
talk about
no?
it
Okay,
because
okay,
it's like it's amorphous, but
okay.
I went to France in 2019, and it just kind of changed my life. I had never been to Europe. I'd been to the Caribbean, I've been to Puerto Rico, but was when I was in the service. So I got to go, and I went to France. I went to the UK. I went to Spain, and I was researching this book here, and it just changed how I thought about how I could be treated in public space because I was not harassed. I was not treated with racism
This
and
was Nice.
distrust in Nice and also in Paris, actually, and in London. Like I didn't have anybody look at me funky. I didn't have nobody look at my son funny. Oh, and he loved Italy because he was like the man, and so nobody would talk to me. I was talking to the man. He's like 19. He'd never experienced that in the U.S. He'd never felt like anybody saw him like as a man. Like they would treat him, you know, like nobody really, honestly, as a black man or like a criminal. And so, yeah, he loved it, and seeing how he transformed, the way he carried himself, that was a surprise to me, and it made me feel like, oh, I got to get my son up out of this for real.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been traveling ever since.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So outside of the traveling book, what's next? What's
I'm
bringing you
working on
joy?
some poems.
Ah,
I'm stealing time to write poems. I'm working on that interview book, which is a lot of logistics, which is not my ADHD strong suit, and I do not have an assistant anymore, so it's taking longer. But I'm very excited about that book. Um,
are you doing a roll call just in case you need an assistant?
uh, my assistant, I have no more research
Okay.
funds, and so the assistant is me. The assistant is now me, unless there are volunteers who want to work on that book. Um, but it's good work. It's all good work. Yeah.
I think my last question for you is how's your heart after finishing this?
Relieved. Yes, relieved. Glad that it's done, and I'm gonna let it take its time to move through public space.
Yeah.
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 Thank you. Anybody got questions?
First, I want to say congratulations, Khadijah. Like,
Thank you.
yeah, just speaking from another, Black femme veteran, it takes so much courage to do what you've done, and of course, it takes 20 years. And just thank you.
Thank you for
And I really appreciated how much time you all talked about your mother and the complexity there, and how much you learned from her, but also how things were difficult. And I'm thinking about how the way that your book ends, and we see like you, well, I don't know if I can. I'm just thinking about your son in the
Yes.
book,
Yes.
and earlier when you were talking, you talked about how like the choices that you were making, you knew that it would be easier for the rest of your family, but also we see that like you have done a lot for your son to move him into another space. And I'm thinking about just like the breaking of cycles that are happening through the book, and probably through your writing the book as well. And I'm wondering, what are the conversations that you've had with him in the process of writing, and also now that the book is here?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question because I did have to sort of talk to him about, what was in the book and what I would be sharing and things like that because his dad is in it. But we don't talk to his dad anymore for other reasons. And then he was like, "Mom, that's your story. You need to tell your story." And he was very generous about it. He's very open-hearted and one of the bravest people I know. And so I'm lucky to have this person who kind of saved my life when I was in the service. Yeah, very lucky. Did I answer it?
Yeah.
I feel like I miss parts of questions because my brain goes in 8 places when I'm listening. So that's why I always like want to clarify and be sure.
Thank you. I have one, so I'll ask my question. But y'all have talked about the relentless violence of the armed forces and the indoctrination. I was wondering if you had any worry about backlash, being honest about your experience and your
Yeah.
criticism.
I mean, that's one of the reasons why I didn't publish it for so long too, because I was just like, oh, what do they read it? What do they say this? What do they say that? And then I was just like, they don't read. These people in my book do not read. So why am I stressing? My ex does not read
They
books.
don't read.
They really don't. So I was just like, you know what? I'm too old for this, and published it. So I mean, I don't know. I doubt that they even want to acknowledge I exist anyway as a Black woman veteran. So, yeah.
That is not the image that's supposed to be associated with being a veteran.
Correct. Correct. Yes. I was in Brooklyn at the VA hospital once and sitting and waiting, and this older veteran was sitting by himself, and he had like an oxygen machine, and he was like, "You're a veteran?" I was like, "Yeah." And we started talking, and I got to hear his whole life story. And this man had been abandoned by everyone he loved because he was trying to be the swagger that, you know, people do associate with being a veteran, like cheating on his wife and overworking and stuff like that. And, you know, she finally got tired of it, and his kids don't talk to him. So he's there, 70 something years old with cancer, don't nobody talk to him, trying to be the stereotype. So that was a lesson for me, and a lesson for him to see somebody who looked like me be compassionate enough to sit and listen to him. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Well, yeah.
I'm sorry. But yeah, I know that you talked about your very personal experience with police brutality and how it makes you not want to speak about it.
Yeah.
I often find myself in the same situation when we talk about the war on drugs and like what it means for marijuana to be this commodity that it is now, despite it has disrupted my family in a way.
Yes.
So I guess my question is, how do you kind of wrestle with that when sometimes it feels like because of personal experience you do have the agency to speak on something, but you just haven't sat with it, or you don't want to sit with it in a way like to kind of leave that with somebody else. So how do you kind of wrestle with that, and how did you cement yourself in your decision to say that they got that?
I think if it comes to me, I do say something. Like I have some stuff in some anthologies that people have asked me to write. I was involved in the Black Poets Speak Out when I was starting. When I was in Colorado at the time, I've done some stuff with them. But if I live in that anger space, I'm gonna get sick, and I have people to take care of. So I gotta like pick what I'm gonna do. Like, and I saw my mother like when she was in the nation because they were flooding drugs in her community, and she was fighting against that. And what did it cost her? My brother. And so, like, do I want to pay that cost? I don't. I paid enough. And so, if somebody asks me, I can get riled up, but I can't let that be my calling and live in a healthy way, especially if I know that they're gonna keep effing doing it, because it's just like it feels like not futile, but it feels like sacrifice. And I don't know. I'm just not in a space where I want to do that right now. I would like to honor all of my ancestors who were extremely creative and could not do it. I think there is a protest in insisting that I'm going to make things. My grandfather could play piano by ear. And the reason why they cut off one of his fingers, I found out later, is because he could play the piano. So, you know, it's like it lives in me, like it lives in all of us, the legacy of violence and displacement in this country. And do I want to live and talk about it every day? I don't. I just don't want to do that. Doesn't mean I'm not going to show up if I have to. And I have done that. I have done so with other issues without, you know, credit necessarily or shouting about it. I think I do better that way. I think there's something I need to do that's I know is going to be effective. I love putting my energy behind that. But just shouting on the internet, or I can't do no standing on protest because I got to sit down. I'm old. Like, what I'm going to do broke down. Like, can I live? I'm trying to live. My brother would want me to live. My brother would want me to make stuff. He could draw. he never got to be an artist. So, I remember him, and I understand the weight of what we are facing because I have a son. So I'm going to protect him. I'm going to protect his creativity. Um, I don't want to dismiss or minimize anybody else's activism. That is not where mine lies right now. Don't mean that it might not change later. Might be one of them old ladies on the front line like you see with Palestine. You never know. But right now, I have to keep my body alive, keep my son alive. Thank you for that question.
Okay. Thank y'all for coming out, and thank you too. This was a great conversation.
Thank
Gave
you
me
so
a lot
much.
to think about.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Books to purchase up at the register. Khadijah, you can stay here, and folks will come to get their books signed.